Okay, for my interview an innovative educator project, I am interviewing Kimberly Hart, my sister-in-law, who is a music educator in the Yukon with 21 years of teaching experience. Kim, can you describe what you do regularly that can be seen as innovative?
I teach music and Yukon First Nation studies, and my number one thing I try to do with students is to get them out into the world and out of the classroom as much as possible. Yukon is an excellent place to teach that allows you and encourages you to get out of the classroom as much as possible. So for music, that means Northern Communities tours, going into small communities, not just performing, haha, look at us, but getting the students in those small communities involved in the show, collaborating, ensuring that we learn about, especially First Nations culture in each of the communities that we go to of the 14 Yukon First Nations. And then for Yukon First Nation studies, it's looking specifically at how they have been educated in a predominantly colonial system from K to, I get them in grade 12, dismantling that system and showing them different ways of learning. While not being the industrialized education system is bad, just there are other ways to learn that might suit your ways you love to learn better, and aligning that as much as I can with the first principles of First Nations knowing, learning, and being.
Awesome. What motivated you to make these changes to your teaching practice?
I went up to Yukon and taught in a small community of Dawson City, and I was the music teacher there, and I took them down to Whitehorse for a music festival. So you practice your music, you go down and you get adjudicated or essentially judged on how well you play. And I had a student who had some learning challenges and who couldn't read and would never be able to read, but his cousin was beside him and so could follow his cousin's fingers when playing the trumpet, and so could play along quite well. His tone was really great. And when we were being adjudicated, the adjudicator tore a strip up this kid, up and down, because he wasn't reading, and how important reading was. And if you can't read, you can't play music. And the kid went back and quit music and never played again.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is not the way. Although I had been trained as a classical percussionist and trained in how to teach reading and music theory and the Western European tradition, I said, this is not right, and I need to do things differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you see these changes and the efforts that you're making contributing to any kind of like social, economic, cultural, or environmental health for your students, a good well-being?
I think especially after COVID, the connection of being in band was very visible in that they started, we have a rock band program at our school, and so they would start to get together and jam together and form their own rock bands. Some of them would get gigs that paid.
Wow.
And so while I'm not telling everyone, you should go into music and do a music degree and have your life be music, it's definitely a great way of meeting people. If you can play an instrument, you can play all kinds of different styles of music. So socially, you can make money off it. Maybe not a living, but if it's something you really like to do, gigs can pay, and they can pay students. So it's something that they could monetarily have an opportunity in their community. But they can also give it back to community, to volunteer for performing in different venues. So, for example, cultural days we've performed at, or festivals, and just getting exposure. So kind of checks all the boxes.
Yeah, I'd say so. What risks did you take along the way, and how did you decide those risks were worth it?
If you approach anything, especially music education, I found in a way that you want to try something different, the backlash is fierce, and it is fierce from even people who may not be aware of how ingrained Western European musical tradition is in Canada. Even if you're like, I'm going to try a different way of using graphic notation, well, you still have to teach reading. It's like you cannot enjoy music or be a musician unless you can read Western European notation. And again, even from like people who don't know how to read music and are not musicians.
And
I would
do music by ear, or like they've never learned the notation. They can hear it and do it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think what people don't realize is, in order to learn how to read music, you either need the financial means of private music instruction or a school that has the means to provide a music education, which is not the same all across Canada. So you are immediately excluding, and this is not just a First Nation thing, but any child who doesn't have the financial or access to education needs to participate in music. And then they think, oh, I can't read music, I don't get to participate, which is baloney.
Even just places that don't have access to a music teacher who's able to do that.
Absolutely. And what was the question again that I was... Oh, risks.
Yes.
And what, yeah. And I think I'm at a place in my career at 20 years. I'm not sure I would have been able to do this when I was starting out. Pushing back against the system that groomed me for this job.
Yeah.
But again, I think teaching up north, sort of being away from the grind of the music festival. See, you have to do this and you have to play these songs and you have to get this level in order to go to this next thing. And integrating the students into just like the community music scene, which is people who may or may not be able to read music. I guess for me, seeing the students love it, continue on with it after graduating, encouraging others to join. The risks for me are worth it. The risks to not pursue this kind of different way of approaching education means students quit music and potentially a connection that could help them throughout their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. For you yourself, how do you sustain your motivation and avoid burnout, especially when you have the resistance or limited resources?
I think in teaching music and Yukon First Nation studies, you get a lot back from the kids immediately. You go on a field trip and you bring the kids home safely and they say, "Thank you, Miss Hart." And they all do. Yeah. And so you're immediately getting this like appreciation of what you're doing. Maybe it took a long time and you planned this trip to, say, an art gallery and you got there and no one knew you were coming. So like you've already got this in the back pocket of, I know it's not going to work out. I've got a different activity planned. So just knowing if you're going to do that, to always have a backup and rely on yourself, which sounds like, oh, you can't count on anybody. But, sometimes that person was sick that day. And so once you start establishing that, you're backing yourself up in everything. So you don't ever have to worry about, what if I go there and this person doesn't show? What if I go there and or whatever? You've got it all sorted. And being very honest with the students. I definitely have had days where I'm like, you know what? Here is where I am at today. And it's amazing. They will back off. Not back off because they're not bad, but like, yep, okay. Yeah. Let's work together. Let's not wander off. Let's stick together with Miss Hart. And, I guess also personally making sure that, I'm having enough time with my kids and being able to say no.
Oh, yeah.